Welcome to today's lesson on selective breeding, where we will uncover the processes and impacts of selectively breeding both food plants and domesticated animals. In today's lesson, we will first define what selective breeding is. Then, we will examine how selective breeding affects food plants and domesticated animals. We will also discuss the problems associated with selective breeding. So far, you have had lessons on genetic variation, natural selection, and evolution. These topics have provided you with an understanding of how genetic differences arise, how species adapt to their environments over time, and the mechanisms through which advantageous traits become more prevalent in populations. Building on this foundation, today's concept of selective breeding will show you how humans can intentionally influence the traits of organisms. This understanding advances our biological knowledge by illustrating how we can harness these genetic principles to meet our needs in agriculture and animal husbandry. Let's get started. Selective breeding, or artificial selection, is a practice where humans actively choose organisms to breed based on specific, desirable traits. This technique has been utilized for thousands of years to enhance characteristics that are beneficial, useful, or attractive. While it has greatly improved agricultural productivity and animal domestication, there are also some significant drawbacks. Selective breeding follows a specific set of steps to ensure that desirable traits become more prevalent within a population. These steps are as follows. First, individuals from the existing stock that exhibit the desired characteristics are selected. For instance, a farmer might choose cows with high milk production, or crops that show resistance to diseases. Secondly, the selected individuals are bred together. For instance, if a farmer wants cows that produce a lot of milk, they will breed cows and bulls that already show high milk production. Then, from the resulting offspring, those that best exhibit the desirable traits are chosen for further breeding. Next, this process is repeated over several generations to make sure the desired trait becomes established in the population. It's important to note that successful selective breeding requires this process over multiple generations to be effective. Just breeding two parents with the desired traits is insufficient for successful selective breeding. Selective breeding has numerous benefits, especially in agriculture and animal husbandry. It is important in agriculture and has been used for thousands of years to turn wild plants into the crop varieties that we use today. For example, wild brassica has been selectively bred to produce cauliflower, broccoli, cabbage, and other vegetables. Animals can also be selectively bred to have desirable characteristics. This includes animals producing more milk or meat, chickens that lay large eggs, sheep with better wool, and dogs that are domesticated to have better temperaments. Despite its benefits, selective breeding also has several risks and downsides, such as a reduced gene pool. Selective breeding can lead to reduced genetic diversity because it often involves breeding closely related individuals. This limited gene pool can make the population more vulnerable. Health issues can also arise from inbreeding, as this increases the likelihood of harmful genetic defects becoming more common. For instance, certain dog breeds are prone to specific hereditary health issues due to their limited genetic variation. In addition, a population with reduced genetic diversity may lack the necessary genetic variations to withstand new diseases, making them more susceptible to outbreaks. Let's look at an example of disease susceptibility, the Panama disease, which affected bananas. Bananas are grown to be seedless, so propagate from cuttings, with all bananas being genetic clones. But in the 1950s, a deadly strain of fungus, Panama disease, wiped out almost all banana plantations in Central and South America. Despite the best efforts of growers, this most flavorful of fruits became virtually extinct. As bananas are clones, there's little resistance to disease, and a single pathogen can kill all of a crop. Let's work through a question to consolidate our knowledge on selective breeding. Explain how selective breeding can be used to increase drought resistance in wheat plants. Pause here to have a go. Now let's go through the answer. Firstly, one should select plants from the existence population of wheat that show the desired trait, which is drought resistance. Then, breed these plants together to produce new plants. Select plants from these offspring that show high levels of drought resistance for further breeding. Finally, repeat this process for many generations to produce a high drought resistance variety of wheat. In today's lesson, we explored the concept of selective breeding, which is a process where humans breed plants and animals for particular genetic traits. Unlike natural selection, which occurs without human intervention, selective breeding is an intentional process used to enhance desirable characteristics in offspring. We explored how selective breeding has been applied to both food plants and domesticated animals. For food plants, selective breeding has been used to improve yield, disease resistance, and quality of produce. Selective breeding is used to emphasize traits such as increased milk production, faster growth rates, and specific behavioral traits. These enhancements can lead to significant advantages, such as increased productivity and economic benefits for farmers. However, we also examine the potential drawbacks of selective breeding. One major concern is the reduction in genetic diversity, which can make plants and animals more susceptible to diseases and environmental changes. In conclusion, while selective breeding has provided numerous benefits in agriculture and animal husbandry, it is essential to balance these advantages with consideration for genetic diversity and animal welfare. Understanding the complexities and impacts of selective breeding allows for more informed decisions in both scientific and practical applications. This knowledge is critical for anyone studying inheritance, variation, and evolution.